Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video with a story about an employee who endured some truly horrible treatment from his manager. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Injured employee denied chair because it wouldn't look professional. I used to work for a certain Times-themed business, the one with the jousty horsey men. That job was cursed. During my time there, I had a car wreck, major surgery, and an infection that put me in the ER, but this story focuses on the car wreck and the aftermath. In October of 2020, the business had just reopened from COVID, and it was early days into coming back. I'm driving to work as normal and driving in the left lane, trying to pass some slower-moving traffic when I suddenly have to stop for a disabled vehicle. I stop, car behind me stops, truck behind them did not, and ends up in my passenger seat. I left the scene in an ambulance. The doctor at the hospital wanted to write a note for 2 weeks, but I begged him to make it 1. See, the thing about this company is that if you're not clocking in for 2 weeks, you're terminated and marked negative for rehire. So he put me on a week leave and back to work with restrictions on standing for a couple weeks after returning back, saying I couldn't stand for more than a certain amount of time and had to sit and rest frequently. I didn't think this would be a problem, as working Spotlight I had plenty of sitting breaks. However, the Spotlight department was also in charge of making those stupid paper crowns. This required standing for an hour and a half to 2 hours based on the company's timetable. I approached my boss, and this is the conversation that followed. Me: "Hey boss, I'm cleared to come back to work." I really shouldn't have been, but I need you to read my note. I've got restrictions on it. My boss: "Okay, I'll look at it later. Are you ready to go to work?" Me: "Yeah, but I will need a chair for the crowning station as I am on a standing restriction due to back injuries." My boss freaked out. He went from calmly talking to me to yelling at me. Him: "It's not fair for you to get a chair while everyone else has to stand." Me: "I was in a wreck. It's doctor's orders." Him: "It's not professional for you to be sitting either." Me: "I don't know what else I can do." Him: "If you're not ready to work and act like a professional, you need to clock out and go home." Me: "But I really need to work. I've got bills to pay. I don't see why this is an issue." Him: "You've already missed a week of work on this. I would have thought you'd be better by now." Me: "I'm a lot better. Him: "Quit wasting my time and leave." I drove home in tears. I sent him a text telling him I wanted to quit. He came back with, "I'm not telling you to quit, but if you miss any more work because of this, the system will terminate you." Long story short, I ended up working and violating doctor's orders for those 2 weeks, all while my back was screaming in pain because otherwise I wouldn't look professional. Edit: if you're wondering why I didn't quit just then, I was applying for every job I could think of, but getting no response or a denied application. I had bills to pay and contribute to the economic crisis my family was going through at the time. Sometimes you don't have the luxury to quit at that exact moment. Wow, your boss was a real jerk. Seriously though, how heartless do you have to be to deny a basic medical accommodation for someone who just survived a major accident? The fact that he knew you were hurt, saw the doctor's note, and still pulled the "it's not fair to the others" excuse is insane. And our second story. I only ate 2. Chronic cherry thief gets called out at checkout. I work at a store, and it was just me and my lovely boss working. It was a long but uneventful day, so we only needed us 2 to get through the last few hours and close the store. In the last hour or so of store time, a woman came in. She was a regular customer, that's kind of important in this little tale, that always came into the store to buy donuts in the morning. So it's not like we didn't know her. She was maybe around 70 or 80 as well, which kind of makes this tale even more baffling to my boss and me. I'd been boxing down like normal, going around the store and grabbing boxes off the shelves that were empty, and my boss called me up to the front office. I was kind of confused and thought that maybe she just needed to see what aisle I was in and whatnot. Oh boy, was I wrong. She looked absolutely flabbergasted, and not only that, she looked so mad that even her face was turning red in anger. My first response to this sight? I grinned. I knew something was up because she was a relatively calm person that didn't let much get to her. As soon as she saw me, she strutted up to me and was wagging her finger in that universal come here motion with a mad half-grin, half-grimace. Her first words were, "I need you to stand in the office as a witness." I was kind of baffled, but at the same time amused at the way she said it since, as I said, she seemed partially hysterical at the time. Seeing the look I had, she went on and explained. "I'm going to tell off this woman in here," she said as she points toward the back and around the store, nicely. She grabbed cherries, took 2 handfuls, and is currently spitting them all around aisle 1. At this, the amused grin was wiped off my face and replaced with astonishment and disappointment. "Seriously?" was my reply at the absurdity of the woman. At this time, I hadn't known who the woman was or how old she was, but she had coincidentally decided to make an appearance from behind the chip pile in the back of the store right after my statement. Immediately, my boss pointed to the woman, and sure enough, I recognized her. She was at the store every day. Every morning, I should say, and should have known better than to do something so disgusting. That was something you scolded a child for, not a woman that should clearly know better. My boss and I waited up front, her getting people through checkout and me waiting in the office for the woman who was just la-di-dying through the store and taking her sweet time looking around. My lovely boss was still ranting about the woman quietly to me the entire time. I'm sure that if she wouldn't have, she would have lost her cool and all professionalism would have gone out the window when the woman finally came up. And come she did. The woman took her time unloading her things out of the bag she carried with her, so there were a few people in line behind her that heard what was said as well. One of them was a regular at a bar by the store, funnily enough. He's someone to remember here soon. The conversation went as follows. "Your total is $, ma'am," my boss said to the woman. The woman nodded and reached into her purse to grab her money, and that's when my boss grabbed the bag of cherries the woman had put down after grabbing 2 handfuls out of it. She presented them to the woman and asked, "Would you like these as well?" The woman looked up at my boss, baffled for a moment. Why would I want those? I couldn't hold back the grin on my face as I watched the scene unfold. The customers behind the woman looked confused. My boss smiled, "Because you already ate a third of the bag." The woman seemed a little irritated, but didn't show much. "I only ate 2 of them to try," the woman replied. My lovely boss grinned and put the cherries down on her register to weigh them and turned to the calculator she had beside her. "Ma'am, this bag weighs 1.59 pounds. It's supposed to weigh 2.03. That's a 0.44 difference in the weight. You ate more than 2. The woman was scowling now. "Are you going to pay for that bag?" my boss asked. "Why would I do that?" the woman asked blandly with a slight scowl. I looked at her dumbfounded. Even the customers behind her were shocked. "We thought this woman was nice, but we now know the truth." "Because you ate a third of the bag, ma'am," my boss replied, clearly annoyed but still calm. The gentleman behind her that was a regular at the bar then spoke up. "That's like me drinking half a Mountain Dew, then putting it back because I don't like it or want it." The woman seemed kind of dumbfounded now, giving my boss a look that she was the one being rude while the others in line leveled the woman in what could only be described as a disappointed stare. "Okay, if you won't pay for the bag, will you pay for the ones you ate?" my boss asked. She was still the picture of calm, and her voice was level. She was even smiling at the elder woman as she asked. Finally, the woman complied. She forked up the cash for the cherries she ate. It's amazing what goes through some people's heads. I love it when a whole store bands together against nonsense like this. Honestly, how much could 0.44 pounds of cherries even cost? Amazing what people steal and justify it, saying how little or cost the store. I'm surprised she ended up paying in the end. I wasn't expecting her to. And our last story. He thought his cop buddies could control the street. When I bought my house, I specifically chose a corner lot in a newer subdivision. It was great. It had sidewalks and plenty of curb space on 2 sides of my property, giving lots of extra parking room. Sometimes my stepson would park there, occasionally I'd park there, and I even let some of my other neighbors, the ones I liked, park there. Honestly, it was never an issue until he moved in. The new guy bought a house directly across the street from the side of my house. Unfortunately for him, he had very limited street parking on his own side, so from day one, he started acting like the parking spots on my side of the street somehow belonged exclusively to him. This guy wasn't just mildly annoying, he was straight up terrible. He quickly developed a reputation in the neighborhood as an entitled jerk, but the worst was yet to come. It didn't take long before he decided to escalate things. He called up some buddies from the local police department, and soon enough, we had police cars parked outside our homes, putting official-looking stickers on our vehicles claiming they were illegally parked. We had no choice but to move our cars so that he could comfortably host his guests. Of course, I confronted him about this, reminding him that street parking belonged to no one, it was public property. His reaction was shocking. He got right in my face, smugly bragging that he had connections in the police department and he could handle me easily. He didn't stop there, though. He went off on an angry rant, loudly and publicly insulting each of us neighbors, listing all our perceived faults and letting us know in explicit detail just how closely he'd been watching us. At that moment, it became clear to me that this wasn't just an irritating parking dispute. This guy was genuinely unhinged. It felt personal, invasive, and threatening. I knew I couldn't let him bully me or my family like this. Something had to change. I began documenting everything. Photos of the parking stickers, screenshots of text, recording of his rants, everything. Once I had a strong case, I reached out to the local police department, not his cop buddies, but their higher-ups, and calmly presented all my evidence. At first they were hesitant, but when they saw the documentation and heard the aggressive threats firsthand, they quickly realized they'd been misled by one of their own. Within a week, those illegal parking notices disappeared and the harassment came to a halt. In fact, an official investigation was opened against the neighbor and the officers involved. Embarrassed and backed into a corner, the neighbor eventually put his house up for sale. Within a few months, he moved out, taking his nasty attitude with him. Now I can comfortably walk in front of my own house again without fearing threats or harassment from a neighbor who thought he owned the street. This guy really thought his connections made him untouchable, but the real cherry on top was his epic meltdown when you didn't just roll over. Watching him backpedal, get investigated, and finally pack his bags must have been satisfying. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.